Hi, this is Rick Savitsky from Chortek. In this video, I'm going to talk about best accounting practices for manufacturers and specifically related to gross margin, gross profit. I'm going to give a definition of it, explain why it's important, show you how we calculate it, but then I'm going to spend most of the time on how we can analyze it with the ultimate goal of how can we improve it. And that's where we're going here. So why is this important? Well, gross margin, gross profit, is the bread and butter of how businesses make money, period, including manufacturers. The tricky part sometimes comes in, especially with manufacturers, as well, how exactly is that term being used? Or in this case, how is it being calculated? And so with that, it's really important that we understand the basics. So gross margin is the difference between our revenue and our cost of goods sold. But again, for a manufacturer, the question is, well, what's really going into cost of goods sold? I have a few other videos on this overall broad topic, so you can check out, there should be links in the explanation of this video to some of those other topics, specifically how labor and applied labor for shop floor is being calculated and what's going into cost of sales. Applied overhead, what's part of overhead? How much is getting applied into cost of sales in a given period? What we're trying to avoid is the kitchen sink or a messy, sloppy sandwich where we're not really clear or we're not being precise about what's in cost of sales and maybe what shouldn't be. So again, very important topic. It's a little complex, but once we have a good working understanding of what is in cost of goods sold, the other part's easy. What's our revenue? And so then we can focus on, well, now what do we do about it? So basic of basics, I'm going to strongly urge that we actually set targets and that those targets are shared, that people understand within the company, certainly in quoting and estimating. At the minimum of a high level, by month, by quarter, what is our target, but really breaking it down by customer segment or product type, it's really, really important. We have some real numbers that we're going to try to achieve. Then we're going to want to use tools to understand what's actually happening. Okay, how are we going to slice and dice one big number into enough detail where we can ask questions and act on it, ultimately so that we can make improvements. So let me do this. I'm going to share my screen and you're going to see how we use Power BI with our other customers to help them make understand what their data is showing. So I'm looking at a view, a year's worth of production. I could pick and choose any period of time and I'd be able to analyze it, but I'm going to keep it for the last 12 months roughly. Shows me how many jobs have been run through. I've got some dials showing me a distinction of profitability, but basically we've got 1.6 million of gross profit over that period of time. What I'm now going to be able to do is drill down into more detail. And as I'm doing so, Power BI is helping me understand the data because it's a little subtle in some cases, but the darker the green, the more profitable on a percentage basis. The lines are showing me total profit for that particular, in this case, customer. But again, this distinction is very, very important. As I continue on, I can see a distinction between manufactured versus distributed parts. Not every manufacturer may distribute, but I can see a breakdown and then getting all the way down to the part level. In this case, again, there's a distinction, very clear. One part, the very top part, is actually quite a bit more profitable, not because the line is longer, but because it's much, much darker green, which means our gross margin percentage is higher on that part versus the other. The question, of course, is why? All right, I'm going to flip this a little bit and we're going to look at it another way. So gross profit over time, and I could look at really any period of time. I'm going to look at a few months worth. I'll flip it back to by week, and I can start to see a very clear trend. This is at the high level. I could do the same thing for C customers, B customers, A customers, and I have a different video on how we calculate and break that down. But what's really important here, again, this is where it's even more dramatic, is I can see a very clear distinction between profitability based on the color. So if the size of a rectangle is similar, it means the total gross dollar is similar, But the big distinction is the gross margin percentage. And the question, of course, is, well, what's different? What are we selling to this customer versus that customer, which makes it significantly more profitable? Okay? That's what tools like Power BI are allowing us to ask those questions. And ultimately, we get down to the part by part or job by job basis. So I'm able to look again for any time period. What is my highest profitable jobs on a dollar percentage or a gross profit percentage? And again, you see there's a big distinction. They're not all the same, right? So behind each one of these is a real job with real hours going in, real material. It's complicated, and yet using tools like this helps us to focus where should our attention be, highest or the lowest profit, and use our time, our valuable time, to start asking what's the difference, what's the pattern, what's the exception, and now what do we do about it? In this case, do about it means is our quoting and estimating team, do they have this information? Do they understand? And as you quote new parts, new jobs, are you taking what you've learned from the past into account, essentially with our markup rates and making sure that our cost rates are correct for the work that we're estimating? I'm going to pause here and flip to a different tool called Fathom. We use this tool to help model what if in the future. If we want to make some improvements, in this case at a really high level, can we explain and use this tool to help everybody on our team understand if we make some changes? So I'm going to assume a gross profit on a monthly basis from $660,000 up to $750,000 per month. And the question is, well, what if, what is it going to take to do that at a very high level? So I can go in here and just assume roughly a 2% increase in pricing. Okay, it's easy to click a button and just do that, but the point is, if I increase prices roughly 2%, I've got two other pillars that I need to move in order to get to my total goal of $750,000 for a given month. I can either increase volume, so go up 4% roughly on volume. I'm getting closer to the 750. And can I find cost reductions on a variable cost basis? Let's say 1%. It's still leaving something left here to get to our final goal of the 750. So on one hand, this is pretty basic, pretty simple, but it's up to date. It's pulling information from my general ledger for the most recent period, the recent month. So our variable cost per dollar is up to date. And essentially the question is, all right, if it's not just about raising price or just cutting our costs, how do we as a team move the different levers and make methodical attempts to improve over time? And again, this tool helps us kind of model, well, what if we were able to make those improvements? So I hope this helps give you an idea of how modern data analytics can help work with the data you already have to both set targets, measure, and then make incremental improvements over time. If this is helpful, please like the video. Please see the description again for some other videos. We'd love to talk to you. So send an email, give me a ring, and we'd love to talk. Thanks a lot. Bye.